Becky Dillard was found dead.
Authorities say this is near where Becky's body was found. They say she was near her car, but her injuries were not consistent with that of a car crash.
The vehicle was still running. The young lady was laying in the roadway with a gunshot wound to her head.
When Justin drank, he became a totally different person. He became angry.
Every day I've gone over what happened, if I could do anything different.
A lot of cases turn on just luck, and that's what happened in this case.
Adrenaline was coursing through my veins. How far behind was I from the killer?
5 unique perspectives, 5 points of view, 1 murder.
I'm Becky Dillard's husband.
I am Becky's
Was
mother.
the first responding trooper to the murder of
I'm
Becky.
a criminal investigator.
And I was the prosecuting attorney.
My name's Justin Dillard. I'm Becky Dillard's husband. Becky was like a little bumblebee. She's ADHD, running around, touching everybody, making everybody's life happy. Like a little fairy, just as sweet as she could be. I loved that she could walk in a room and it could be a bad day in that room and she'd just turn it all around. I'm here I am. Smile now, it's okay. We were doing pretty good at that happily ever after fairy tale, kind of what we wanted. Here we are, married down the road and kids. This is my best friend, my wife, mother of my kids. We were supposed to be together, arguing, bickering over her cooking 20 years from now. My life literally changed. All changed completely in one day. I have never felt the pain that I felt. I wouldn't wish this on anybody. It was Friday the 13th. I remember thinking, oh Lord, here we go. What's gonna happen today? Becky got home and changed and was getting ready to go to her sister's party. It was Sarah's 21st birthday party. She was already late. She had to get gas, she had to go back to Walmart. She was gonna pick something up for Sarah. I really didn't want to go. I changed my mind 2 or 3 times and finally I decided, you know what, I'll just stay home. Well, at 9:30 that night, her brother had called and said, where's Becky? She should be there pretty soon. She left at 9. 10 o'clock came around and she still wasn't there. Talked to Sarah that time. And Sarah said, well, she should be here by now. And I said, well, yeah, she should be there. And she still wasn't. By the 3rd phone call, I was worried. I thought, okay, something ain't right. At that point, I knew it was not good. So I thought, okay, we need to go find out where she's at. So I called my friend Lindsay, that was also her friend as well. I said, Lindsay, come up here and get me. So Lindsay says, I'm on my way. And she comes and gets me, and we tried to track her down, and we went where she was supposed to be going. We actually went to the gas station she was going to. We went the way she was going, and she wasn't on the side of the road. Nobody knows where she's at, and that's not like her. We always knew where everybody else was. We get to the party, and there's some police that want to talk to me. They tell me that I need to come with them. I didn't think it had anything to do with Becky. My world was perfect, and she's not supposed to be hurt, she's not supposed to be harmed. That never crossed my mind. When Becky and I met, we hit it off right off the bat. We became really close, really good friends. Becky was the new girl. And you know, when somebody's new, everybody wants to find out about them, what they're doing, who they are, what's going on. And I had a small little crush on her. Our interests were very similar. She was into fashion and clothes and hair and appearance. And I know that sounds vain, but Back then, we were still in high school. We'd call each other and be like, well, what are you gonna wear? I'm gonna wear this. We were always inseparable, but we were for real together. We graduated high school in May, and by mid-June, she moved in with me and my mom. I got to the police station. I sat there, and it seemed like I sat there forever and ever and ever before anybody even came in. And then this man came in. They wouldn't tell me anything. They wanted me to answer all these questions, but they would not answer any of mine. And finally, this older gentleman said, well, we found Becky without a pulse. I'll never forget the pain, the sickness. That is not something you can describe. When someone tells you your whole world is not alive, is gone, is dead, is over. That blunt. You don't just do that to somebody. They questioned me for, it seemed like hours. They asked me questions like, do you have weapons? Do you have guns? Is there anybody that would harm her? Would you harm her? I watch enough TV to know that they come after the husband or the spouse in these situations. I thought, well, surely they're gonna come after me.
I'm Clinton Howell. I was the first responding trooper to the murder of Becky Dillard. I was north of West Plains on 63 Highway working some traffic that night. And Troop called me and informed me of a motor vehicle crash with injuries on Double F Highway in the southern part of Howell County. While I was en route, then I was advised that there may be a fatality involved. I come around the corner and there was a vehicle sitting on the left-hand side of the road in the grass, still running, and I could see a young lady laying near the center line, all crumpled up, and there was a few people standing around. I jumped out of my car real quick and went right to her right off the bat. I noticed blood on her scalp. Assessed her real quick, and she was already gone. There was nothing I could do for her at that point. This young lady was still very warm. It wasn't like she'd been laying there very long. It was an odd scenario because the vehicle didn't have any damage on it when I rolled up, and it was upright, setting off in the grass like it had been pulled off there. So my gut instinct was already going wild. Started looking around, located a couple of shell casings in the road near her body. They shined in my patrol car headlights. Adrenaline was coursing through my veins. Is there somebody out just 20 feet off the road in the brush? Because there's no lighting out there, and the only way the scene's lit up is with my patrol car headlights. I knew that I needed some help real quick. I immediately keyed up and told Troop to get DDCC investigators en route. As I'm waiting for my investigators and a backup to show up, and I'm telling everybody to stay put and not move because they're actively part of a crime scene. One of them could be the shooter. So I visited with each one of them individually to try to assess them and their story, why they were there. There was no flags from anybody I talked to. I moved over to her vehicle, making sure not to touch it, looked in it through the glass. I could shine my flashlight in there. I could see that the heater was on and it was sitting there idling. Her purse was still there in the vehicle. It didn't appear to be disturbed. It was like in the same spot where she had set it, over on the passenger side. When people break in and steal vehicles, of course, they usually dump them or scatter stuff. Robbery was not a motive with this victim. When entry was made into the vehicle, it was made by Warren Wiedemann, our DDCC investigator. He looked in her purse. Of course, there was a driver's license, and it was easy to make positive identification right there. Her name was Becky Dillard from the West Plains area. The early assumption is that she was traveling to an undisclosed location we didn't know, and for some reason she got flagged down and she exited her vehicle to get out and talk to them, and they shot her right there in the middle of the road. She would not stop in the middle of the night for a stranger in the middle of nowhere on this old back road. It was blatantly obvious it was somebody that she knew and she felt comfortable with. Everything was intact. None of her clothing was ripped. There was no signs of no struggle. So all the obvious indicators are it was a hit. And it was our job to find out why and get that person. If there's a fatality involved, then I have to notify next of kin and contact family. And we never do that by the phone. We always do it in person. Throughout our conversations with some of our local contacts and people, we were able to determine that Becky had a husband, and his name was Justin Dillard. Of course, we don't rule out anybody at that early stage. Everybody is a suspect at that point, and we needed to interview him. We developed information that Becky's husband was at a party on a county road west of West Plains. So me and a deputy rolled onto that location. We tell him that we have, some bad news for him. He's distraught. Very, very, very dramatic. Some initial observations that made some flags go off from just an investigation standpoint. He's a young male married to a beautiful young woman with 2 beautiful kids. And he's wearing pink cowboy boots, a pink shirt, and has makeup on. And that may not be a flag in a metro area, but in rural Howell County, that's a huge flag. We had to figure out, was there, extramarital affairs going on? Was there domestic violence? We placed him in a patrol car, headed towards the sheriff's office as quickly and safely as possible. At that point, it was time for me to step back out. When I left the sheriff's office that night, he was one of the suspects, definitely in my mind. I just couldn't shake it.
I am Debbie Talbert, Becky's mother. Around 2 o'clock that night, the phone rang. I got up and answered it. And it was Becky's father, Benny. He was crying, which is unusual for Benny. And he said, something has happened to Becky and you need to come to the police station right now. We got there to the police station. Charlie, who was Sarah's husband at the time, grabbed me and sat me down and told me that Becky was gone. Before I even had a chance to react at that particular time, Justin comes running in the room and grabs me by the head and said, oh my God, Becky's dead, and started crying. I immediately, instead of crying, got angry because I knew that he had done something. I wasn't surprised when Becky told me that she was seeing Justin. I thought he was a little feminine then, but he seemed to be a really nice boy, and they hit it off pretty good. Justin would listen to Becky, and he knew exactly what to say to her. He was a more softer person, more gentle. When Becky found out she was pregnant, she had a good support system on both sides. Both Becky and Justin wanted to go to cosmetology school. Justin's mom, Debra, took care of Kobe while they went to school, and they were getting along really good, living in Debra's house. When they were going to school, Justin started to drink a little bit more. I don't exactly know why. Maybe he was more scared of actually raising Kobe and providing for Kobe as a father. He was falling down on his duties as a provider for the family. And a lot of times he missed school because he overdrank the night before. It was causing a rift in their relationship. She didn't want to live in that house forever. She wanted her own house, just like every person does. Becky was hoping that once they had saved up enough money, they could get a place of their own and they could actually make a go of being a happy family. Well, after Kobe was about 3.5 years old, Becky became pregnant again. She had asked Justin to stop drinking because she wanted to have another child. So he did for a while. And then after she became pregnant again, he started drinking again. When Justin drank, he became a totally different person. He became angry at everything and everyone. I begged her to please come and stay with us, but she wouldn't do it. Becky did have some hope that they would be able to be together and make a happy family, but in my heart, I didn't see that happening. So she started taking some of her check and hiding it so that she would have some money eventually to get an apartment or a down payment on a home. She was trying to move out of the house with Justin and get out from underneath the chaos that was in the Dillard home. Whenever someone is murdered, you usually look to the spouse first. And that particular night, Justin did show up at Sarah's party at a particular time, and he was yelling and crying out, "Where's Becky? Where's Becky?" And they didn't know what was going on. He was crying, "Oh, she's in the ditch somewhere dead." My whole family knew that Justin was involved in some way. They just had to prove it. Whoever was in the truck following Becky had stopped her on the highway. There was a vehicle that came from the opposite direction, and they saw both vehicles stopped there.
There's two cars, SUV and I think a Chevy pickup that was parked on the side of the road.
It was a big break in the case for the detectives because had not someone remembered seeing that truck on the road, they probably never would have been pointed in the right direction.
My name's Warren Wiedemann with Missouri State Highway Patrol. I'm a criminal investigator, and I assisted in the investigation in the homicide of Becky Dillard. When I advised Justin of his Miranda rights, he became extremely emotional to the point of almost being hysterical. It was obvious that he was under the influence of something. We weren't really getting a whole lot out of him. He was leaning forward and just rocking side to side and crying. He just didn't seem that concerned to help us. He was more worried about his own emotions than he was trying to figure out what happened to his wife. We didn't have enough to take him into custody, but we still felt it was very possible that he was involved in this death. Lieutenant Gary Lamb and I began to interview numerous people that had been at the party. Dean Ellis's name came up quite a bit. Found out that Dean Ellis was actually Justin's father, who had had nothing to do with Justin for about 15 years. And it was my understanding that Dean Ellis was having some heart problems and had decided he wanted to basically reconnect with his family and get to know his son. So Dean Ellis, just a short time before this, had actually moved back into Debra Dillard's residence with Debra Dillard and her current boyfriend, and Becky Dillard and her husband, Justin. So it was unusual having your father living with your mother and your mother's boyfriend, all in the same residence. We'd gone back to the residence to photograph vehicles, to check for any firearms and other weapons at the residence. And then when Dean was there, as he came out, I asked if he'd be willing to talk to me. He was an older man, did not seem very healthy, did not get around real well. It just did not appear that he was involved. He didn't have the ability to leave the residence. He was pretty open with discussing, the coming and goings at the house, of Becky getting home from work, of Debra Dillard going to run errands, about what time people got home. It did kind of stand out to me when he told me that Billy Eastep had been sleeping all evening through all of this. Billy Eastep's name had come up during the investigation. That was Debra Dillard's boyfriend and lived with her. I specifically asked him, how do you know that he was sleeping? And that's when he pointed out that's what Debra Dillard had told him to tell us. Now it seemed unusual that Debra Dillard is providing alibis for Billy Eastep. That was definitely a red flag. Our initial interview with Billy, basically we were just trying to kind of go through the timeline of the previous day. It seemed like he was trying to distance himself from everything and just say he was asleep and knew nothing. I felt like he was holding information back. Between Debra Dillard, Justin Dillard, and Billy Eastep, we're really narrowing it down, but we're not sure if it's all of them, one of them. So we're still looking for more physical evidence. About 5 days later, a witness comes forward. And that was a big turning point in this investigation. And that was Tyler Bean. Tyler Bean was driving on Highway FF that night with his girlfriend. There was a vehicle sitting facing northbound with the headlights on. And when he went by, Tyler described that as this black Ford Explorer. And he said behind it was a Chevrolet pickup.
Can you describe that truck for me again? I know it's a dark-colored Chevy pickup. It had a light-colored mismatched body part on the driver's side of it. It was probably late 90s, early 2000 model.
Okay. When you say light color, what color would you say the body part was?
I'd say more like white.
That was absolutely a huge moment. Not only that somebody drove by and saw this, but somebody who knew vehicles well and could not only just say that he saw two vehicles, he described them and was able to pick those vehicles out. He actually looked at photo lineups of vehicles and picked out the vehicle that Becky Dillard was driving and Billy Eastep's truck. We absolutely wanted to bring back Billy for an interview and basically either confirm through a polygraph that he was the one that did this or to help clear him. The questions be very direct of whether he caused the death of Becky Dillard or whether he knew for sure who did cause that death. Billy Eastep showed deception was indicated during that examination. But in the post-test interview interrogation, he did not admit to having shot Becky or even being present when she was shot. He stuck to his story, continued to deny it until eventually he wanted to leave, and so he was allowed to leave. We didn't have enough at that point to charge him. His girlfriend, Debra Dillard, is requested, and she voluntarily comes to the Highway Patrol headquarters. She is driven there by Billy Eastep in his vehicle with the white door. Debra Dillard comes in for her polygraph, and she also fails. After somebody fails a polygraph examination and the post-test interrogation, it's a very direct accusation. Because now you know that they either did it or they know for sure who did it. And so you go after them. During the interrogation, she admits that she has lied to us and that she knows who killed Becky Dillard. And she's saying that Billy Eastep is the one that did it. She said he threw the gun into a lake and that the gun is gone. So, of course, with Billy Eastep also being present, officers immediately got a hold of him and began to talk to him also. They're letting him know that she is telling the truth and she is blaming him and that he's the one that did it. And at that point, he admits that he was there and he has lied to us. But he says that Debra Dillard was the one that pulled the trigger.
My name is Rizwan Ahad, and I was the prosecuting attorney in this case. I'd received a phone call from law enforcement officers that they had asked Billy Eastep to come to the highway patrol to discuss his involvement. When I arrived, he'd been speaking to law enforcement for probably about 30, 45 minutes. When Billy Eastep was confronted with the Debra Dillard statement, I just remember the surprised look on his face, almost like he knew he'd been caught. At the time that Billy Eastep was arrested, we knew that Debra had knowledge of the murder, but we didn't know her involvement. When he made that statement that he was present at the shooting, in my mind, Debra became a stronger person of interest. During the investigation, we determined that Debra Dillard and Becky Dillard had a tumultuous relationship, that there was a lot of animosity between the two of them. There were a lot of disagreements, mostly over Justin, but there were other things. We learned that Becky may have been thinking about leaving Justin, and Debra was very concerned that if Becky were to take the children, that she may not have any more contact with them. Billy Eastep, in his explanation, he stated to us that Debra Dillard and Becky had an argument, that Becky was wanting to go to the party and that Debra wanted her to stay so that Justin could get ready and go with them. But Becky had left. According to Billy Eastep, he didn't know exactly what was going on. Debra told him to get into the vehicle and they followed her. They caught up to her, at which point Billy says Debra Dillard started flashing her lights. Becky pulled over.
She got out and she said, "Becky, come here." When Becky started walking over there, she stopped in front of the truck and she said, "Justin wants you to go back and go get him." And when she turned around, Deb went pow.
At that point, Becky went down. And Billy saw Debra walk up to Becky and shoot her a second time.
Then she got back in the truck, and I looked at her and I said, I can't believe you did it. I can't believe you really did it.
It would have been enough to charge her, but it wouldn't have been enough, I believe, at that point to take her to trial and convict her. We found more evidence later on. What happened was the longer Billy stayed in jail, the more Debra was becoming a little more guilt-ridden. She started discussing with individuals that Billy was being railroaded, that he had nothing to do with it. We received information that Debra Dillard had written a several-page letter. Law enforcement officers then went to Debra Dillard's house where they discovered she was laying in bed with a gun next to her and this letter that she had written. She confessed in that letter that she was the one who shot Becky Dillard that night on that highway. According to the officers, she was very distraught. They stated to me she looked suicidal at that point. The sheriff himself, I believe, removed the gun from her. It was loaded.
Are you afraid of sitting in jail for what you've done? No, I'm serious.
I haven't done anything.
She said that she cared about Billy so much that she figured that she was going to write this letter admitting to this and then killing herself so that Billy could be released.
That's my story that I made up to get him out.
She then said that she decided that she wasn't going to do it, but it was too late because she'd already sent out these letters.
I gotta have you tell me the absolute truth today. I'm so sick of all the drama and the bullcrap. Man, I could flush it all away.
No, because I want to know who killed him. I'm telling you.
At that point, we weren't 100% sure she was confessing to the crime or she was trying to get Billy out of it.
I just want to believe with everything that I am that Billy didn't do it.
We only have one shot to convict a person, otherwise double jeopardy attaches, and we would not be able to try her again.
You realize how bad this looks, Deb?
I'll take my bite.
A lot of cases turn on just luck, and that's what happened in this case. Now, West Plains is a pretty small town, and one day the sheriff of Howe County, Mike Shannon, happened to be getting a cup of coffee at the convenience store. The cashier made a statement to him that Debra Dillard had once stated to her that she was going to kill Becky Dillard, but that she received a reprieve because she was pregnant with a child and that she was going to wait a year. And oddly enough, almost to the day, a year later, Becky Dillard was murdered. When we received that information, we felt like we had enough evidence to charge Debra Dillard with the murder of Becky Dillard.
I've dealt with other scenarios with in-laws and family members and everything, but nothing so violent, so cold-blooded. They're just acting like the concerned grandparent and her boyfriend, and then the whole time, they're the ones that done it.
Every day for 10 years, I have gone over what happened. I don't feel that my mother had anything to do with it the way that everybody is saying she did.
Our theory behind the case was that Debra Dillard just wanted Becky out of the way. She was making Justin's life miserable, that Debra had had enough.
She wanted those children, and the only way that she saw she was going to keep them is by getting rid of Becky. Because Justin, there's no way that he would ever get custody with his alcohol problems.
Becky's going to get the babies, she's going to get child support, and then she's going to go on with her life.
Debra knew that once those children left, that Becky's mom and the rest of her family was not going to let those children go back.
We believe that was the motivation that pushed her over the edge. That night, Becky had angered Justin, and we believe Debra had just had enough, and that she was going to cure the problem.
When I walked into the courtroom, Debra Dillard looked at me, but I tried to ignore her as much as possible. I saw the hatred in her eyes.
Deb Dillard felt like she could control things, that she could make this happen, and that she could get away with it.
The defense focused on Billy Estep, stating that Billy was actually the one that did it.
She had to put the blame on someone, so she chose Billy to put him as a scapegoat.
He knew that she had extra money because it was Christmas. He robbed her, and so she wouldn't tell on him, he killed her and played it off like nothing had ever even happened.
We believe we had enough evidence to prove Debra Dillard guilty beyond a reasonable doubt without him. but we wanted him to testify. We found out when we arrived for trial is that somebody had hit Billy Eastep, had given him a black eye, and at that point, Billy refused to testify. Debra Dillard also took the stand, and she testified on her own behalf. And she explained that she and Becky had a wonderful relationship, that she was a great daughter-in-law.
She is my child. I love her. She didn't even know what a mama was until she moved into my home.
She wanted me to be with Becky. She liked Becky. She still will say my daughter when she talks about Becky.
The entire focus of her cross-examination was the letter that she had written. I went line by line with her on that and actually gave her the opportunity to explain it away. And she tried, and it was obvious to me that she was not being truthful.
Her brother testified against her and actually told the whole court that she had conspired to do this a year before when she found out Becky was pregnant, that she was going to be the one that murdered Becky because she was bad for her son.
If she was going to kill somebody, it wouldn't be her children. It wouldn't be me. It wouldn't be Becky. It wouldn't be our kids. It would be somebody that hurt us. My mother confessed because if she didn't, she was afraid that they would come after me and the kids.
Whenever a case goes to the jury, I'm always concerned, did they believe the witnesses? Did they believe Debra's version? Every prosecutor has that concern because, of course, we have to prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt. The jury found her guilty. She broke down. I mean, she basically fell apart.
Not until the jury came back and said guilty did she show any kind of emotion. That just tells me she was guilty with no remorse whatsoever.
She didn't kill anybody. She wasn't there. She couldn't have been there. Whoever killed Becky, I don't think we will ever know why.
In a first-degree murder case in Missouri, the only sentence in this case would have been life without parole. So when the verdict came down and the sentencing came down, I just felt like justice had been served.
We were never able to prove that Justin Dillard had anything to do with Becky's death. There is suspicion, but even today I couldn't tell you for sure who pulled the trigger.
Becky's family's done a very good job of making me look bad. I feel like I have been victimized very much so. I lost my house, my kids, my wife, my mom. 10 years, and it still hurts just as much. It's never gonna go away, ever.
Whatever Justin did, Debra told him to do. Whatever Billy did, Debra was in control of that. She was the more dominant one in that home, and there was only one person in that home that wanted to defy her, and that was Becky.
The wolf followed Becky to that roadside spot where she was killed. And so we work hard for every victim, but it's especially difficult when you see somebody that isn't doing the wrong thing and bad things come and find them.
My best friend, my wife, my everything is in the ground. I pray every day that heaven's real because that's where she's at. And I know that all I have to do is keep praying and I'll see her again.